Hello, everybody. This is Han Feizi and Mozi with another podcast. This week we have a special guest, which is Han Feizi Junior. He is on break from Tsinghua, and he is willing to spend a few minutes talking about his experience there. Han Feizi published an article in the Asia Times as well as made a video about the decrepit state of elite education in the US and another alternative for mostly Chinese American diaspora, and as well as any other ethnicity who'd like to take up the challenge and go to undergrad university in China. So, with Han Feizi Junior here, he is now in his third year at Tsinghua's computer science department. We will see what he thinks. Off to more. You started off.
Right. Yeah. So, hi guys. No, Han Fei, I think you should also lay out a bit more. You make some argument on your video clip about how the U.S. college, basically you name all the Ivy League schools that many kids actually would die to go.
Yes.
But you basically making the argument that they are not that great, especially for Asian students, right? If I get your video right, and then you.
Yeah. So there's,
you make this argument first.
We all saw the scandal about 4 years ago where a lot of muckety-muck upper-crust families are trying to buy their kids into elite schools. So the entrance qualifications for Ivy League and elite schools are really kind of goofy. Some of it's academic, some of it is sports, some of it is weird-ass activities. Lots of it is who your parents are, how much money they donated. So it's a mixed grab bag of weirdness that Asian applicants are often disadvantaged in utilizing. They're not underrepresented minorities, and they don't have the money to buy themselves in. So and they're already overrepresented, and it just becomes extremely cutthroat in the competition. Whereas, and then even with, the Supreme Court supposedly struck down affirmative action, it has helped Asians in some schools and has shown next to no improvement in others. Now, the idea of applying to Chinese universities is a lot of Chinese universities, especially the elite ones, they are missing international students. That is the part that they want to climb up in the rankings, and the rankings, international students is a part of it, is a piece of it. So you are actually treated as a diversity and an inclusion candidate for once in your life for Chinese/Asian diaspora students. So that was a gist of the video. Han Feizi Junior, you're on mute, so you should unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah.
There you
Okay,
go.
I've unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions I can start off with?
Yes. Maybe just for the benefit of the audience, just a bit of introduction, a brief introduction about your own academic career, right? How you, where you went to, where you get your education. Then we start with these two questions. Then I will follow up with your experience in Tsinghua. So what your perception is before and after. But we start with your background first before Tsinghua. So just give people a context about how you get in.
Okay, so I did my primary to secondary school education, international school in Hong Kong, and then so this was. For my secondary school, it was a part of the international baccalaureate system, so the IB, which is out of 45. And basically, how we got into Tsinghua is that Tsinghua has a Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan department where they purposely try to include Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan applicants. And because we don't do Gaokao over here, they have to do it through different systems. And the one I got recruited through is called the Principal Nomination Scheme. And what this is basically Tsinghua University and other universities would personally give out quotas to different secondary schools in Hong Kong and Macau, Taiwan. You would first have, and to get through the system, you would first have to get your school's permission and say, okay, we will nominate this student because of decent academic standing and and background. And then after you get through your school's process, then your resume and all your information will get sent to Tsinghua, and they will do their internal selection process. And once you get past this step, then there's a final step of the interview. And the interview will be about like a 15-minute interview of where they will be checking your language skills, they'll also check your English skills, and also referencing anything that was brought up within your CV. And so, yeah, this is how I got into Tsinghua.
You explain how popular was this program when you raised your hand at your international school?
In my international school, within my year, it was actually not very popular. We had only about 60 students. That's something to consider first. But within those 60 students, I only know 2, including me, who consider this program. And the other one was my friend who ended up dropping out of this program before the internal selection process even took place. So for me, it was just my school vetting to see if I was a good enough selection for them to put up. So yeah, it wasn't a very popular scheme at the moment.
And where did the rest of this class go?
The rest of the class, they either stayed in Hong Kong or they went abroad to such as America, Canada, or UK. I think those are the big 3.
About this year, are you getting more interest in people interested in the program this year?
Yes, so I'm already two years removed from this program, and I've realized that this year there has been an additional, like, more amount of people who's from my high school reaching out to me through social media and asking me, "Hey, how'd you get through this program?" And asking me just about any suggestions I might have for how they might proceed. So I feel like, yes, the program's getting more traction and becoming more popular over time.
Sorry, no, sorry. I have a follow-up question on that, how to get in. So, and this a popularity point. Yeah. So Feizi Junior. So you mentioned about Han Feizi Junior. You mentioned about the popularity of this program in your school, but do you know about how many students in Hong? Because this program cover Hong Kong, Macau, right, and Taiwan too.
Yes.
Yeah, and then how many you figure, so you understand that are the how many students from these regions, these 3 regions apply, and yeah, so and how many places being granted to students in this program, right, in this track?
Oh, okay. I actually know the numbers for this. So every year, Tsinghua recruits. This is for everyone. Recruits about 3,300 people as undergrads per year. And then within this, there is 5% who are international students, and these do not count Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan are in their separate gray area, which is about 2% of the 3,300. So a year, there are about, I think, around 25 Hong Kong students. And for Macau, Taiwan, it will be around the 25-30 range. So the principal nomination scheme, I know it's not everyone who from the Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan system who gets in through this scheme. But at least for Hong Kong, I can say for my year, it accounts for at least 50% because everyone I talked to, most of them went through this scheme where their school got a nomination from Tsinghua and they managed to get through the system through their school. So in total, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan would account for probably around 80 people.
But you mentioned this 50% is that the admission rate, right? So the success relative to the number of students that apply, right? From Hong Kong.
No, actually, I actually don't know the success rate is not published, but I won't be surprised if it's that high.
Right. So and put it in context. So the kids in China, so they go to Gaokao. Getting admitted to Tsinghua, I don't know, so 1% or what say?
Yeah, it's very, very low
percentage. One year.
Like, well, for context, my roommates are all top 30 of their entire province. So the entire province would constitute almost hundreds of millions of people, right?
Yeah.
So that just puts things into context.
Hundreds millions of students, a cohort, so from one province, and they are the top 30. You mean?
Hundreds of millions of people. I think for the amount of people per year, it's probably a million, but 30 in a million, that's pretty absurd too.
Yeah. Okay. So So this program or this track that you take to be admitted into Tsinghua is actually is a much higher percentage of success.
Yes, for sure.
What are the options for the international student to apply for Tsinghua? Yours is a kind of principal's nomination for Hong Kong and China, Taiwan, well, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. And what are
Right.
the
From my understanding, international students applying, I've made a few international friends here,
Yeah.
and their application is similar to applications to any other foreign university. So this would include just a personal statement explaining why they want to apply and what major, a basic application saying their personal information, and then they would have to go through an interview process, which basically just tests for their Chinese skills. So the Chinese skills is based off the HSK system. I think they need to pass HSK 4, I think, but we should double check that. And then in addition to that, if you submit an SAT score, Tsinghua actually checks that as well, in addition to your school system, such as AP or IB, and they'll consider that.
And have any idea about the success rate? How many people apply from like globally, right? Basically, so
Oh, I'm sure
Hong Kong, China.
I'm sure the amount of people who apply is very much restricted by who can and who wants to. So the biggest restriction, I believe, is the language requirement, because your Chinese does have to be a decent amount. It does have to be decently good with and you have to pass the HSK test. And the SAT requirements are actually quite tough. I know friends who got in with like a 1470 or a 1500 flat. I'm sure there are people with lower grades, but those are just people I heard from. And those people are in one of the more popular majors, such as electrical engineering or computer science.
And those international students are they usually like Chinese backgrounds at home, they already speaking Chinese, so they need to reach that level. Just give us a context about the Chinese requirement, because just about the score, so I think many of the listener may not understand. So, oh, that score, what does it mean? What kind of Chinese level I need to be at that score?
Okay, so I think that there's a huge population of just I wouldn't say fake Chinese, but just people from Chinese backgrounds. There's a lot of Malaysian people here. There's also a lot of Chinese background people from foreign countries. So I have an Indonesian friend, and she's a Chinese Indonesian background. And then I have another friend from Canada, who's also Chinese Canadian. But then there's also a lot of full-on Europeans. So I have a French friend. Her Chinese isn't great, but she is half. And then there's another friend from England. He's studying mechanical engineering, and his Chinese is fully white. So he learned Chinese by himself, self-taught. And I think you could equate the Chinese level you need to get into Tsinghua as maybe like a basic primary level. So Tsinghua actually has a very nice system, which is if your Chinese isn't good enough, you can first come to Tsinghua for a 1-year language system, and then basically this will get you on par. It just fully Chinese classes, and once you're done with that, then you can apply again, or you can go through directly. I'm not entirely sure, but those are specifically designed for international students who have a good enough Chinese level yet.
So when we touch upon the selectivity parts about like 50% of those from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan applied may get a chance to get in, and then China much lower. And then for internationals, your point is you think it's just not that many people could apply, so that maybe the success rate for those apply also could be quite high, right?
I think the success rate, if you actually apply, is not low. I think the biggest restriction is not actually the requirements such as Chinese level, because Tsinghua really lets you, if you demonstrate that you're fully foreign background, they're actually quite lenient on the background. They'll just bring you in for a year of Chinese first. I think the biggest restriction on how many people apply is really the demand right now. I don't think the demand for Chinese universities is nearly as much as demand for foreign students into like American or Canadian or UK universities.
Oh, so for international applicants, basically, so they just go to the Tsinghua website, just like any of those US university, right? Go to the website, and then basically, so I can do the whole application through there, or they had to go to certain agents, or
Oh no,
eventually?
you can directly search for Tsinghua International Student application and then go through the Tsinghua website to apply.
Application will be in Chinese, or could that be done in English?
It can be done in both. I mean, the website itself has an English website as well. Your application can be done in English if you want to. Tsinhua's international program is actually much more popular for its grad program, and there are much more international students for that. So I believe that Tsinghua is actually actively recruiting. They really want a bigger international presence for the university campus.
Usually, so I guess I'm just keep asking the practicality points. So usually, so the application just the application cycle same as those US and UK schools, right? So it starts somewhere around September to November.
Yeah. So my application process more or less lined up exactly as they did for the American process. So my last year of high school, I would have started applying it around October, November, and I got my acceptance in uh I think early April.
So we keep we talk so quite a bit of how easy maybe a higher success rate it is for Macau, Hong Kong, and also international student to get into Tsinghua. But to give everyone a context, so what's your IB score? So you mentioned that the full is a 45, right? So out of the 45, what score do you get?
I got a 43 in the end. I applied with a 40 though. I think that should be considered in context. I know a lot of people who applied as a Hong Kong student and they were around my range, within the 40 to 45 range. But I also know a few students who got in with like a 37 or below. I think the restrictions if your grade are worse, I think Tsinghua is still pretty lenient on that. It's just your choice of majors might be a bit difficult to choose.
So I guess it's for Tsinghua the hardest subject to get into are those engineering, computer science, that kind of subjects.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, so Han Feizi, since you did your undergrad in the US, what you perceive as Tsinghua comparing to what type of schools in the
Okay, so the because I did Han Feizi Senior did undergrad. I went to Cornell, so the fake Ivy. There's major differences. One is our semesters are much shorter. Tsinghua, they're there for 20 weeks per semester. We're there for 12 or 13. I forgot what it was. So it seems like, the US would charge you all this tuition and then give you, 60% of the education almost. Two, there's a lot more partying in the US. I just remember partying and socializing was at least half of what I did in school. There's a lot of goofing off, a lot of skipping classes. I hardly went to any of my engineering classes, but there is a but there. The but is that there was a lot of, and this is true, there's a lot of academic freedom there where I spent half my time in the comparative literature department. So I spent more time writing for the literature department than I did in my engineering classes. So that kind of thing is very much possible in an American university, and I'm not too sure what it's like in Tsinghua. On phase number two,
I want to
can
cut in with
comment on
that.
it. Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
I want to cut in with that.
Hang on,
go first.
Senior and junior.
Yeah.
Before we get into the campus life, no, what I mean, my question is for Americans, how they understand Tsinghua. So like, is it Tsinghua comparing to Caltech or MIT, or Tsinghua is more like Stanford in China? Yeah, so help us.
You mean how an American thinks about these universities?
American or even you, now you're more knowledgeable about.
I'm more knowledgeable, so my opinion is already biased, right? But let me just say that I have friends in the U.S., highly educated ones. And when I told them that my son is going to Tsinghua, they said they had to look it up. So that's part of it. Other highly educated ones, like a professor at UCLA. We joked around that saying, well, it's not Cornell, so it's got to be shit. But he knew definitely what it was because he recruited students from there. So, but to be perfectly objective, the rankings of Tsinghua is right up there, pretty much the top 10. It hasn't broken into the top 10 of the big rankings yet.
Globally, right? Top 10
Global.
global. Yeah.
It hasn't broken in the top 10 globally. The top 10 global will be, HIPSM, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, and then you got Cambridge and Oxford in there, and then you got some other stuff in there. But it's been very close. Like Tsinghua is 12 and Beida is 14, and it's ahead of a lot of other Ivies such as Cornell, UPenn, Brown, Dartmouth. I think Columbia. It's ahead of Columbia, is it? Yeah, whatever. But so it's up there. It's up there. It just has not broken totally occupied a lot of mind space yet in the Western mind, I think, because I do have highly educated friends who are like, "What is that?"
Yeah, I'm surprised that in a couple conversations I had with some American people when talked about Tsinghua. I mean, they knew especially for people in finance in the big corporation, they know they know Tsinghua is one of the top 1-2 college in China. But many of my American friends do not know that Tsinghua was founded by American.
Well, no, they wouldn't.
They don't know that background.
I don't think a lot of Chinese people know that too. Know that either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Indeed.
But yes, but Han Feizi Junior probably know a bit of a Tsinhua's history about how it's being founded.
I actually didn't know that until I was on campus when they explained more about the campus history.
So and then the campus design, a lot of the old building, they actually model after Stanford.
A lot of it is designed after European architecture, and this was done on purpose.
Yeah. So
the reputation that is kind of funny is when I tell diaspora Chinese, like Hong Kong Chinese or people who immigrant kids in the U.S. that my son is going to Tsinghua, they were somewhat scared, as in they think it's extremely grindy and juan, and oh my god, is he gonna, and he's going, and then they asked this one question which is really funny. Is he taking separate classes from the local students? Like they're wondering if there's a separate track for international students. I said, no, he's with the local students. So they were like, as in if it was going to be a very torturous experience. And I guess Han Feizi Junior can comment on it on his own, but that's one impression some Chinese diaspora have of going to school in China.
Oh, okay. It's just a side comment. In this conversation, what I try to get is one is how to get in from outside. Yes, and then my second part is I want to get into what people do after Tsinghua. So I think that's two key points for a lot of people who think about college.
Okay, yeah.
And then the third session, then we jump into the door Tsinghua from juniors to talk about his life academic experience.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Are we good if before people get in, what they should know, how to get in and all this? Yes. So then let's talk about the result.
Okay, the result. Han Feizi Junior. What happens? I have no idea what you're going to do.
Yeah.
What do people do?
What graduate do after Tsinghua? What kind of works company they get into? The result.
I can explain based off my experience, my major. So I'm in software engineering, and as an undergrad, most people first want to finish a grad degree. So a grad degree in China is actually 3 years. So 3 years of another software engineering.
Is a master's? Or you can do what's it called?
Master's.
Okay.
But it's just 3 years here.
Okay.
And then, or you can do a 5 years plus PhD program. And that's actually more wanted. It's just harder to get into. But anyways, after you do the grad program, the software engineering major, most people just go into like big firms like ByteDance, Tencent, firms like this. And then there's also a lot of people, I'm talking about both Chinese and international populations right now. From undergrad, they want to go to a foreign grad program, such as like like a something in computer science in the States, something like that. And then from there, they would continue to pursue their career in computer science. So I think the general takeaway is that most people, at least if you stay in China, most people want to do a grad program first.
Do you have any percentages? How many percent do this, that, and the other?
Okay, so we have a thing called 保研, which just means you can stay in Tsinghua for a grad program, and that's the most desired. And I think the amount of people who end up like 保研ing to another university, necessarily Tsinghua, will end up becoming something like 80%. So that just means how many people are, my bad on the statistics. I think the amount of people who stay doing a grad program, including Tsinghua, including other Chinese universities, including foreign universities, will be upwards of 80%. And 20% of them, 20%, the other 20% will just go find work immediately.
Okay, of the universities who go to grad school, how many is domestic and how many is overseas?
It's actually quite low now. Tsinghua actually had a minor scandal within the mainland because everyone in mainland were complaining about how come we're sending all our smartest kids to Tsinghua Beida and they're just going abroad. It's like a brain drain process, right? So Tsinghua actually came out calculating the statistics. Only 8 point something, only like 8.6% of people end up going abroad.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh,
I think this is much lower because of COVID, but even before COVID, I'm sure it was under 20.
So mostly upward of 80% continue their education. And then basically out of the 80%, 70%, 70 percentage points of people actually stay in China to further their education. And majority of them just did 3 more years in kind of a master program. I understand it correct? Yeah. So and then of this this 10% people that went abroad. So what are the school names? Which school that they went to in the US and UK or in the Western world?
Usually, if you're a very huge selection of them, but I know a few people who went to, for example, NYU, John Hopkins, obviously the Ivies, MIT, just very big name schools.
And still is engineering major. I mean, it's not like went to MBA.
Actually, MBAs are the Tsinghua has a very big economics and management program, and I think for them, MBA schools are pretty common. Just more familiar with the engineering path.
But the engineer, they won't. When you say further education, the engineer undergrad majors are not going to I mean that 10% is not MBA, right? Basically, they still focus in the engineering.
They still pursue an engineering.
Yeah. And then then further out then after they finish their master degree, and then after they done with the education overseas. So you mentioned when people the 20% of undergraduate graduates, so when they finish, so they just go to like ByteDance, which is TikTok, right? So, and then Tencent, the big Chinese tech company. So what else? What are the company names that usually you see regularly showed up as the placement places for the graduate?
I'm actually not very familiar, but I know the top 2. The top 1 is Huawei. This is the entire Tsinghua. The biggest recruiter from Tsinghua is Huawei, and the second one is BYD now.
Oh,
so the car company.
Yeah, the car company. No engineer went to go to finance industry.
I know there's a lot of people who do. I know one really successful person, really successful undergrad from like a few years prior from software engineering, and there's a lot of people who just want to go into quant because they think it's like a very get rich quick scheme.
So let me interject here, just as a point. About 15 years ago, when me and Mozi were in finance, hiring some ABCs, American-born Chinese. But at around 2015, or a little bit, or somewhere around that time, and after, it's pretty much if you want to work in Hong Kong, China, it's all mainlanders. The American-born Chinese who did their high school and their undergrad in the U.S. were just no longer competitive because there were just so many Chinese students who did their high school in China but have an Ivy League degree, or Tsinghua students were just Tsinghua Beida students and similar who are just as competitive. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents. For a
Yeah,
while, the ABC is done, at least in Asia.
So you see the cutoff years the 2015, right?
Yeah,
after
about
2015.
then. Yeah, about then. There was just such a tidal wave of PRC students that you know, if you're just, you know, a fake Chinese, kind of like me, you're just no longer competitive. I'm the last generation that can pull that off.
They're no longer competitive because after 2016 you become the head of the department head, right? So
yeah, I mean, you become management, as in you're grandfathered in. But if I was you know, 25 years old, I wouldn't be competitive. You know, that path has shut down. But you know, when I started my career, you know, 20 something years ago, I was quite competitive.
No, I mean, so after you become, because when we are just leading our own teams, you have around like between when we work together, right? Between 2010, 2011 to 2015, I was there up to 2016, right? So then I have about 4 or 5 guys in my team. And then you have you have 6, 7. I remember correctly. I remember out of that 6, 7, but I'm talking about before 2016. Only one actually never gone aboard. Yeah, it's your oil and energy.
All right. Yeah.
Otherwise, they all US educated, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
and some cannot even say Mandarin properly in the team.
Yes,
that was a time.
Yeah, that was a time. Yes.
Yeah, and then in my team, let me think. Well, I at least have 2. I have 2.
No names.
Yeah, no name from mainland China.
Yeah.
So the others are like Singaporean. I myself, Honky, but also educated outside. But you're right. So
at a certain point when I was interviewing kids, right? And then it seems to me when I was interviewing kids from HKU or HKUST, oh man, it was all PRC kids. And once in a while, I would get a very good honky kid. And whenever I get a very good honky kid, I would always drag him aside and say, look, you're probably going to get the offer, but don't take it because you really should do time on the mainland. I always give them that little speech. They never take that advice, but
and then also put it in context when you say so after 2015 or 16, so then the mainland students actually have a much better success in entering into the finance, right? So it wasn't just your decision, right? Because when you become department head, then you have a lot of other team head that hire people. It's just your observation.
It's just my observation.
Not yourself, but other people just keep picking the kids from England. Okay. Got it. Okay. Interesting. Should we start to touch the body of the education experience?
Yes. We have about 2 minutes before the 40 minutes shuts down, but we'll restart it if we'll just restart a new one. Okay.
Okay. So so you mentioned then you brought up some moments ago about your experience in the US, like partying, skipping classes. So what's a junior's experience in the academic side in Tsinghua?
I think one thing my dad said regarding you're a mechanical engineering major, right? But you took a lot of classes in the comparative literature department. That exists very well in Tsinghua, as in I can literally take any open course available, and there's actually an elective requirement. So I had to do a few credits in other languages. I had to do a few credits in the arts, the social sciences, popular sciences, and I think humanities. So for academic freedom of classes, it's actually very, very free. I know my friends in Canada and in the UK in Oxford who's studying chemistry, and I asked him, hey, have you ever taken any class other than what's designed for you for chemistry? And he said, no, that's kind of weird. So it's just a very different attitude to it. I think this is the entirety of Chinese university as well. You can take any subject you want to. And regarding campus freedoms, I'll try to wrap it up before this call. Maybe the partying scene, the wild partying scene isn't as crazy, but going out, experiencing the Beijing city everyone does that. It's just a very common thing for students to go out during the weekends. And unless you're preoccupied by homework, of course, but it's not nearly as hardcore nerdy as people might expect. People who come here from Gaokao are very hardcore during the Gaokao years, but there's an attitude which is basically maybe like the second year into Tsinghua, they ease down a lot and they try to just have fun.
I think so. Yeah, Junior. Now you're talking from a now you have very good experience now. So, but before you went to Tsinghua, what do you expect for your academic career? Hey, Junior, so yeah, you spoke from your experience. Now you've been there for more than 2 years. No, I actually I'm more curious to know about what was your perception before you enter. So what you expect your academic career, social life, etc. would be before you enter.
Okay, so I think coming out of high school, I was actually I think it's more fear than excitement for Tsinghua because I have never taken any education in the mainland, and all my education, even in Hong Kong, is predominantly English. So there was a big fear of the Chinese element of how every single class was taught in Chinese. And also, of course, the math part, I was kind of scared because I know I know coming from Hong Kong that mainland math is much more hardcore than math in Hong Kong. And the third fear I had was just I would be so outclassed at Tsinghua intellectually that my ranking would be a consistent bottom for the worst one, the bottom of the class. I think once I came into Tsinghua, I won't lie, my first semester there, I found it really hard. I think one big reason was just it was COVID, so China had lockdowns back then. I didn't get to make that many friends that first semester, and it was just a really big shock. I think the only thing that I really found difficult was the getting used to Chinese being taught for every single class. I think that um, the math was actually okay because at least for the big classes like Calculus 1, Calculus 2, and linear algebra that everyone has to take, Tsinghua realized that yes, the mainland population were so much better that they just opened classes available to international students plus Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan for us to take, and that would be graded on a curve with each other and not considering Chinese kids level. But then even now, I think after my very first semester, I realized, even though I found it really hard, I wasn't bottom of my class, and that was actually really surprising for me. I think moving on into my second semester, I kind of get used to it much quicker than I expected. My Chinese skills have gotten much, much better. Um, my learning is still done in Chinese, but I've gotten much more used to that. And I think that's the general sentiment for even international students here on Tsinghua. Like you'll never be first in the class, but it's nowhere near as hard as I expected in the beginning.
Say yeah, the kind of the math and that kind of things is really I mean what kind of effort do you had to put into the catch ups? The math I understand it's still as hard as what you perceived before you entered.
So I think it can be said that the workload at Tsinghua is actually it wasn't as bad as I expected, but it was very tough, especially in the first and second year. As in the credits you have to take according to the plan is actually it actually goes down over the years. So my first semester I might have had like 26 credits, and now I'm in my third year. I only have around 15 credits, and by the time in my fourth year, I can have well under 10 credits per semester, and each credit would be like 45 minutes a class per week. So in the first year when you had to get through the like calc 1, calc 2 and your intro to computer science, intro to programming, as well as physics, just getting everything out of the way, the workload was quite a lot, and then I would spend a lot of time in my dorm just working through my homework sheets, my practice sheets, and studying for tests.
Like any particular help from the teaching staff for students who may struggle in certain kind of fundamental subject like math or Chinese?
Every year we're assigned, so we're in Chinese universities, you're actually split into homerooms. You don't do that much with your homerooms, but basically each major is split into a bunch of homeroom classes of around 20 students. And then each homeroom class will have a student, either a master's student or a PhD student from the same major, and they'll be your TA and your more like an RA, and they'll help you for any questions you might have about campus living, life at campus, or just any issues with homework. And then I remember my TA in my first year, he helped me a lot just talking about yes, I might not be that used to learning in Chinese, but then he got me contacted with a few international students in their third and fourth year, and they kind of just helped me. Oh, these are the easier classes. This is how you should be studying. So I feel like the help from the teachers and help from the TAs. So there's for TAs for classes, we also have a lot of them, and they're always generally pretty helpful for any homework questions you might have. And so I feel like the academic help here, if you look for it, it's always there. It's actually quite easy to find, and it's quite nice to have.
So it basically is it's not just doing the tutorial session, but you could also reach them outside the tutorial session and get help.
Yes. So for some classes, they actually host tutorial classes, but then if you want help outside of these classes, the atmosphere here is you can just you can just text the TAs and they'll be very helpful generally.
And then you touch up points about the kind of subject that you can take. So basically, yeah, for computer science majors, you can take a fair wide range of subjects. You mentioned about some kind of a humanity and literature type of subject that you're also taking. Well, what are they? So can you just tell us a bit of the subject that you take in the first year and the second year?
Okay, so for some examples of so for every major you have to, of course, you have to finish a set of major classes for you to graduate with that major. So for me, that would be, for example, intro to programming, intro to object-oriented programming, computer networks, software engineering, just general stuff like that. But then for the elective requirement, I took classes such as introduction to psychology, introduction to took a class on what was it called again? It was an art class where we just discussed the impact of computers on society. That's kind of interesting one. And then there was another class about Chinese opera, appreciation of Chinese opera, where all you did was just listen to the teacher and you get a PF grade. And then we also actually have PE classes, so just physical education classes. And those are actually quite tough because we would have to, for every year, we would have to run 3,000 meters for guys, and then for girls it'd be 1,500 meters, and see how fast you can run that. And then they'll also have pull-up tests. They'll also have long jump, stuff like that. And then they'll also have a lot of different classes you can choose from, such as swimming, street dancing, basketball, soccer, etc.
The PE is also elective, not compulsory, right?
No, the PE is actually required.
Okay, so all students
Yeah.
have to PE. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So and then yeah, I recall that I learned from Han Feizi Junior that you have this military training session sort of at the orientation.
Yeah, so that's a result of me coming from Hong Kong. So international students don't do it. This is the military training is actually, it's more or less just a Chinese version of college orientation. So one thing is, on one hand, it's we need to toughen up the new generation, but it's more just from what people take it now, it's more like an icebreaker into college and getting to know your class in a way. It was a 3-week stint where we would be brought by military people in the army, and they would wake us up at I think 6, and then we would march around doing military drills until 6 p.m. and then repeat that for 3 weeks.
12 hours every day, like physical training?
It wasn't that bad. It was more just
Yeah.
marching around. The hardest part was you would have to stay standing for a lot, and then you'd have to march around. You'd get lunch breaks, and you get breaks every, I'd say, like 45 minutes. But yeah, it was very atypical from what you would expect a college student to have to do.
Right. So, but that's only for the student from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan.
Yes, and mainland, yeah.
Oh, mainland also.
Oh,
Okay.
Taiwan people actually, you're not forced to. You can take it, but you don't actually have to.
Interesting. So, and then yeah, you mentioned not much homeworks. Usually, yeah, to talk about first, because you mentioned about the credit getting less from the first year to now to the third year. So, how many hours do you work? So, did you have any free time at all? So, in the first and second year?
Free time, yes, there is. It just there definitely is free time if you make time for it. I think it's not as I think it's just like any other engineering university where if you wanted to have fun, you could at the expense of maybe you wouldn't get that great a grade for your homework. But if you wanted to really try hard and learn very well, you could just stay shacked up in your dorm for the entire semester. But with free time, it's actually much better than I expected, as in if you wanted to go outside to have fun, you could do that.
Well, so I think the Han Feizi Senior can share about experience in the academic experience in the US. I have one semester in UPenn, right? I remember. So whatever subject that I took, even though in the end of the semester I had no idea what I've learned, I get a B plus or A.
Really?
So, do you experience the same type of grading inflation in in Tsinghua?
B plus or A, that's so nice. I do not experience grade inflation at all. It did inflate the grades from before, but that's just because everyone complains so much that even their top students maybe would only get like 3.6, that no one would be able to apply to foreign universities because GPAs just look so ugly. But anyways, for reference, I have two classes I got a D in, but even for those classes, I studied really hard for like a full week, and the classes I got a D in were statistics and advanced linear algebra, and one reason was because I didn't put enough time to studying, and also it was in Chinese, so it was difficult. But grade inflation here definitely does not exist, as in you definitely have to know the material. If you never studied, if you never put in the work, you're definitely getting an F.
Now you're talking about the downside risk. So what if a student get like D or below? What will happen on average?
If you're getting a D, it's fine. If you get an F, the risk is if you F too many classes, you just get compulsory expelled. That's the rule, but I heard what Tsinghua actually does is they'll actually allocate you like a partial tutor or try to ask you what your issues are and they'll try to resolve it. But I think the biggest issue with getting a really bad grade is it might impact, like let's say you're a mainland student, what they really care about as an undergrad is whether they can stay in Tsinghua for grad. So if you fail a class of that, it really impacts your chances of getting to stay in Tsinghua for a master's or a PhD program.
So seniors, did I picture the American college ranks for my one semester experience?
Pretty much.
You
Pretty much. I mean, I got through engineering, and this isn't even uncommon. In mechanical engineering, it's probably about 25% of people were really into it and actually learned the material. And then 25% of people were completely lost. And the other 50%, which I was that crowd, we just kind of goofed off, did the homework, kind of understood it. When the test came, we studied for it in the last 2 or 3 days, and then ended up with A's and B's. So that's American education. The people who really distinguished themselves, they would have like A's and A pluses strewn about their transcript. But you can definitely get through American elite education. I mean, not much of anything but cramming in the last few days. To get an F, you really have to try very hard to get an F. A D, you have to try to get a D.
right. And then yeah, a bit more on academics. Sorry, so guys, if
No, go ahead.
my question get really boring.
Yeah.
So how often you get tests? So what are those midterms? I went to undergrad programs in Hong Kong that they have 2 midterm and 1 final in 3 months. So that's really a very high pressure situation. But what is it like in Tsinghua for the testing?
Right. So we run on the semester system, which is 16 weeks of classes and then 2 weeks of finals. Usually you just get a midterm and a finals. Some classes just have a finals. It's pretty typical. Just 8 weeks, then you do a midterms, another 8 weeks, then you do a finals.
And then yeah, the whole grades are based on the midterm and the final then. No.
No. It's actually,
Yeah.
this is the majority, but
Yeah.
you also get, so for example, classes might have homework, like small, there might be homework grades. This might just be about 10%. Sometimes they have attendance grade, but this is only like 5%. And then if you have a project, let's say for computer science, we have a lot of those. For example, writing a game. Sometimes those are the final exams. And then midterms finals usually just take up the rest.
You feel about the teaching staffs, you feel like they are more spend most of their efforts in their own research and getting their paper published, or they actually really making an effort in teaching?
I think that are definitely good ones and bad ones at teaching. It's definitely much more a research university, as in most teachers spend most of their effort on teaching, on research, but generally all okay, as in I definitely learn a lot from each of my classes. I think something to be brought up is that the research atmosphere at Tsinghua is very, very big, as in, I have a friend at NYU studying computer science as well, and then I asked him about his situation with internships and just working in a lab, and he says that internships are pretty hard. Same here, but I was really surprised when he said that to get into a lab, he would have to ask the teacher, and they would say no. As in, I found that really interesting because at Tsinghua, it's very much an informal process. If you were interested in a teacher's research, they would advertise them at the start of class saying, for every semester, saying, okay, today we're going to learn operating systems, but before that, my lab does AI research on blah, blah, blah. If you want to come, here's my contact information. So it's very informal and they're very welcoming. And then a lot of the research stuff I got into, all I did was I added the teacher on WeChat. I said, hey, I'm interested in your research. And then they would just allocate me to one of their PhD students and I'd work under them.
So already in your studies, you could also participate as it sounds to me sort of RA then. You're participating in some of the research or your teaching staff. I mean, or the
Yeah, you just be a small research assistant. It's very common at Tsinghua.
Get paid for it, or is it just part of this learning?
I got paid it. I participated under 3 teachers at this point. I got paid in my first research. I didn't even do that much, but it wasn't a lot of pay. It was like I probably got 4,000 total for around a year, but it wasn't much work either. It'd be like every few weeks, teacher would just tell me, hey, I need you to sort out this data.
What are they? Can you be a bit more specific about the type of works? I mean, the research topic and then your participation in that topic.
For the 3 labs I joined were all part of my software engineering department. My first lab was a part of cloud computing. So just working on solutions to different cloud computing problems. And then I didn't actually get to do much in that project. We were supposed to make an app to test internet speeds really quickly. But what I ended up just doing is the teacher had some data that needed to be parsed, such as who won an award in this science field in computer science within the past 5 years, something very arbitrary. And then I just helped him search it up and then put it all into a big spreadsheet. And then, yeah, so this was the work I did in my first one. My second one was research into computer vision and trying to obtain a 3D model based off a 2D image. Well, anyways, all we did for that was just read papers because we never really got into the step of actually running code and writing projects. And the one I'm currently kind of in is trying to use AI prediction models to look at MRI scans, so like scans of the brain, to try to be able to more accurately predict who has a mental illness based off the brain scan. Maybe like if doctors can't see if there's any trends going on, we can use our models to try to predict it for them.
And then your participation in this current research is?
In my current research, I'm still just running their prior models and helping them read research papers. So I'm very much just an assistant role right now.
Right. This the AI imaging or in AI interpretation of the MRI, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. So I mean, it sounds that those research are quite current and kind of it sounds to me it's at a very application stage. I mean, application level instead of a very high level abstract idea. Yeah, awesome.
You want to You want to explain, say, your thoughts on the different schools in China, the difference between, say, the top schools in China, Tsinghua, Beida, Fudan, Shanghai Jiaotong. What do you think of them? UST?
Are you asking for just the top schools? I mean,
Yeah, just
because
top
I know the
schools.
schools that maybe international students apply for
Yeah.
are
That
definitely
pretty
going to be
much.
the top schools of China.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
I
top
think
one,
Yeah.
the top schools are split into multiple tiers. I'm actually not even that clear on them, but the top is definitely Tsinghua Beida. That's one tier, and the tier below that would be Shangjiao, so like Shanghai Jiaotong University, Fudan University, Zhejiang University, and there will be those are generally considered, one of them would be top three, depending on which one you like more. And then after that, you get into like the 985 classification, which is just a grouping of like 20 something universities. This is kind of just the Ivy League of China. And then below that, you have the 211 collection. And those are just another set of a bigger set of universities that are considered pretty good. And then you split into Ibin Yuanxiao, so first ban. So that includes Tsinghua to whatever the bottom first ban is. Then you have Arbin Yuanxiao. Those are just worse than Ibin Yuanxiao. And then below that you have Minban Benghe. They used to be called Sanben. And what they are private universities. Private universities are funded by just someone, I guess, someone really rich, and they run their own universities, which are generally more expensive for tuition costs. And I don't know about the quality of education, but the ranking are generally lower. And then yeah, so these classifications are correlate one-on-one with the Gaokao score required to get into them. Well, anyways, going back to your question on what I think about the top universities, Beida, Tsinghua is generally known to be an engineering and science place. We have a decent economics program as well, and then Beida is much more an arts humanities place. Yeah, and then Fudan Jiaotong. Every university can kind of classify them into what they're good at, because Fudan is definitely humanities. Shanghai Jiaotong, I think they're better at science and engineering. And then Zhejiang Daxue is just, I think they compete with anyone, so they're kind of good at everything. And then yeah, below that I'm not completely sure, but a lot of universities they're named very specifically after what they were designed for in the beginning. So you would have like Beijing Youdian Daxue, which is like Beijing Post University, and at the time they were in charge of telecommunications, and that was what they were designed for. Nowadays, like for example, we have a lot of, they call them normal universities here, Beijing Shifan Daxue. Those are for teaching universities. So their primary objective is to raise the next generation of educators. But now they're also good for, I don't know, economics, math, stuff like that.
I think I think there's many things areas that could be interesting to cover in the academic side. But let's before we allocate too much time in the academic side, let's touch upon the soft side, right? The social life. So I know that in Tsinghua, you have to share your you have to live in a dormitory, so where basically in one single room, then multiple students live together on the kind of bunker bed. Because in the US, in other places, usually people have their own room, right? But in Tsinghua, you all be in one room, right? So with your roommates.
So one thing one thing that Tsinghua does, I don't know if I like it or not, is that they split the international and called like Chinese population in dorm wise. So the international dorms would actually be just typical what you describe. Everyone has their little own rooms, that or they're max like two people rooms, and then they have a bathroom in their own room. And then for universities, for dormitories for local kids, and I live in one of them, as for undergrads, there are 4 people dorm. So like for each dorm, there's 4 students in them, and then on the beds are on top. Everyone has the bed on top, and then below their beds would be a desk.
Yeah, and then basically you don't have your own rooms, so 4 person in one room when you say in the same dorm.
Yeah. Oh, and then bathrooms would be shared for um among multiple dorms. Like it would be, there's a huge alleyway. So on the other side of the dorms would be other dorms and other bathrooms.
How come? You are being counted. So you are your dormitory arrangements if the same as for the local students. So like those from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan will be in this same arrangement. But then when you say international students, then they have their separate dormitories where they
Yeah, so the
their own
international
room.
students are they just have another set of buildings for them. So it's completely split. And then Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan people are classified into the same dorms as local Chinese kids.
Yeah. You make some friends there, and then how you how is it coming along from when you enter to now? Because I mean, living in Hong Kong, I know it's a bit of you know your surrounding, right? So in your school, home. So I think it's quite a big change from like living kind of a regular you know private property into this kind of dormitory, so where you had to share your room with the other students, and they're also probably from very different background, right? Maybe you talk a bit of you know the different backgrounds of your roommates.
So my roommates are there's a Xi'an student, there's a Anhui student, and there's a student from Henan, so just different provinces of China. And then they're all top 30 of their entire province for their year. And one is top 10 of his province. All very, very smart students. But this is just common within every single dorm in Tsinghua.
Yeah. And well, I mean, you say smart, so there's many different kinds of smarts, right? But I mean, how is it like socializing with them or living together with them?
Actually quite nice because I feel like something I get that international students might not get that easily is the chance to just talk to and work with local students here. I feel like one reason my Chinese improved so much is just because I live with them for so many weeks of a year. And that helped my Chinese improve a lot. That also helped me get used to living in Tsinghua a lot. And I think one thing that like the split arrangement, as in uh local kids live in international kids live in dorm buildings and local kids live in another set of dorm buildings, is that the fact that they don't have shared living kind of splits. International students usually hang out with international students and Chinese kids separate, right?
Yeah, because in the videos that the Han Feizi Junior made about the school in the US relative to the school in China, so he mentioned a point about although the US campus is more mixed, meaning that more students from have students from many more different countries. But they don't tend to mix. They tend to socialize. Like the Chinese probably socialize among themselves, and then the local students socialize among themselves. Then from what you're saying here, so in Tsinghua, also you could have that kind of situation where the international student tend to socialize just among.
Yeah, very, very much so. As in the international students just hang out with international students, and the local kids here just hang out with local kids.
Are there any student organized activities like after class, like kind of a happy hour drink, or you know someone's because the school that I went to in France, they every week they have this kind of every week they call it international week. So this week is like let's say Korean week. So the Korean student will organize some party with kind of a Korean cultural feature. The Italian student will organize a party next week. So and then they have that kind of because the school that I went to in France is an international school, so they also encourage students. Basically, we are all taking turn to have the so-called the random dinner. So I will host dinner at home. Then put a paper outside, so then we'll have like 10, 12 people sign up to come to my dinners, and then many of them do not know me actually. So then it just helps the student to mix and get to know each other. So can you share a bit of like any initiative from students or from school that's being taken in Tsinghua to encourage that kind of encourage social life or cultural exchange? So.
I wouldn't say there's a lot of like informal stuff like you talked about. Just like I feel like the international weeks, we don't have those. Those sound pretty interesting, but what we do have is we have a lot of student-run clubs. Every semester, there would be a club introduction week, and then everyone would get to see the different clubs. Like there would be like sports clubs, like bodybuilding club, um, recreational running club, and then there would be cultural clubs like French Chinese alliance club, some very interesting stuff like that. And there would also be just interesting like mountaineering club, debate club, stuff like that. And then I know they would have their own little student activities that are run by students. So that's something that's quite interesting in Tsinghua. I haven't really participated in much, but there are a lot of informal activities that I just showed up at because I just got invited to them, and sometimes there would be cross-cultural communication there. But I feel like even as an international student, if you wanted to get to know more Chinese students, the easy way for that would just be to work with them in just academic projects or just joining student-run clubs. Yeah.
Senior, so
Yeah.
what's your social life like in Cornell? Any student organized activity you feel like that actually that was helpful for you to break the ice with the other students and get to
No,
know
see,
people?
see, that's the thing. That's the thing. No, in undergrad in the U.S., it's a lot of you're kind of on your own. There are groups and clubs that you have to go out and join. But this is a very much a kind of an American thing, I guess. You're on your own. The social life in a lot of universities, Cornell included, is somewhat split. There are people who join fraternities. And joining fraternities or sororities, that's you segregate yourself into that fraternity or sorority, and much of your social life circulates around that. And everybody else is just kind of on your own. I just kind of made friends here and there, mostly in my major and somewhat outside, but it was a lot more random. There wasn't. Yeah, no, the university didn't quite do too much.
I perceive probably probably is in the US, you also in different classes, you have different classmates. So within a semester, so you're not like constantly seeing same group of people, right?
Correct. You do bump into the same people in your major because you tend to take a lot of the same classes, but you won't be taking the exact same classes like some places. So you do make friends. So my friends are probably half within my major and half outside. But it took a while, as in a U.S. university, where the first 2 years I was a bit lost. Just kind of had a miserable first year. Second year, just lounging around. But third and fourth year, the university kind of became mine. This is my school. That's the bar I go to, and then it got a lot more comfortable. And these are the friends that you that kind of stuck with you the whole time, or you found out you fit in with these students the whole time. 1 second.
Juniors, can you describe a bit of your closest friend now in Tsinghua? Or where are they from? Or are they
Oh
just
yeah, okay.
your dorm mate?
My dorm mates are I'm definitely pretty close to them. I think I'm kind of in a unique position where because I come from an international school, I get along really well with just the international population at Tsinghua as well. So I have a lot of friends from my Indonesian friend, my French friend, my Spanish friend, my Canadian and American friends. But then, so I have an international part of friends, and I also have just Chinese friends from my major. But that's kind of just how we split it. And I have a few Hong Kong friends that I made from my very first year here.
You guys do, I mean, among your friends. I mean, in my times, I just in my school days, usually we would kind of grab a beer after school, talk. We talk a lot in the dormitory, so all sort of subject. And then I used to do some basketball is one thing that we did a lot together. So what kind of activity do you guys do together? So among the friends.
Among friends here, typically just go to the mall and just eat like pizza and stuff like that. But
Right.
another thing that we just work on, I don't actually play basketball, so I haven't done that before. But I went outside to just different places in Beijing with my friends before. But just exploring the city. But in university, that much other than just studying together.
What's interesting is nowadays in Beijing, I lived there for 1 year actually, so for your own reference. So yeah, back then as an outsider, so yeah, I mean, the back then our transportation way is mainly bicycle. So I mean, among my colleagues, actually, back then I get a girlfriend from the Beijing University, but she's a foreign student. So yeah, we cycle around the city a lot. So just as outsiders, so we tend to like they're making a lot of effort to look for actually sounds silly. So make a lot of effort to look for like the coffee that we used to like latte, so, but you know in the 90s not that usual, and then make a lot of effort to look
Yeah.
for look for tortillas and bagel that kind of stuff. Go for long distance. So your father used to be the seniors, Han Feizi Senior used to be a writer in Beijing scene. And there was a magazine that we used to follow a lot as foreigners because Beijing scene would introduce a lot of places that's interesting for the foreigners living in Beijing. So we used to read the magazines religiously and follow those places that Beijing scene recommend. I don't know how's it like in Beijing. I was just trying to ask juniors about when you say exploring Beijing. So what are the interesting things in Beijing for foreign students nowadays or for students in general?
I think Beijing now compared to the 90s is quite different. As a foreign student, if you want to go to bars and just clubs and stuff, that exists here in Beijing. It's not that hard to find. And then the restaurant and just the different food here, there's a lot of choices you can get here. Those are quite nice as well. I think I got a much bigger exposure to just the different amount of Chinese cuisines you can get. So, like in Hong Kong, it's much more, while there's international choices, if you really wanted local cuisine, there would just be Southern cuisine. Whereas here, there's a lot of selections between just the variety within China itself, which is quite unexpected, at least for me. I just learned a lot about that as well. So there's also a lot of just, well, typically if you're as a Chinese, if you're a tourist, you just come here to check out the different seeing spots in Beijing. If those aren't your thing, there's definitely just bars and stuff you can just go to.
Beijing is completely different than what me and Mozi experienced in the late 90s and early 2000s. There was only 2 subway lines then. Now it's every last corner of the city is covered by the subway. So it's one of these mega cities where it's impossible to go to all the cool places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And also, yeah, our way of social lives may be very different from juniors generation. I saw some article somewhere that I mean, in the current undergrad or university students actually they don't really drink.
Yeah, I saw that article too, and I'm like, my God, what happened? That's not how I raised.
Used to be a fiction, right? Holding a
Yeah.
beer. For us, but that's why I'm curious about. So when Junior talking about exploring the city and then the social lives, it doesn't seem like that kind of activity, like hanging out in the bar, so or just buying like several packs of beer to bring back to the dormitory is not that kind of stuff anymore, I presume.
Yeah, that's where I mean I have roommates who drink like beer, but going out to drink a lot, that's kind of uncommon in mainland Beijing.
See, yeah, much healthier than our generation. I think so. We stop here. So maybe
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
other question.
Any last minute thoughts, Junior? That
Not really, other than
Okay.
I feel like in the future, just considering Chinese universities and foreign influence, I think that I agree with. I think that there's a common sentiment that there will be more people applying in the future. So, but as an applicant now, you're very much it's a low demand situation right now.
buyer's
Actually,
market.
Yes, that's the word I was going for.
Yeah. So, I have one more question. So, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Junior, what do you want to do after your undergrad in Tsinghua?
I think I'm very unclear right now. I think the general idea is that I'm kind of open to a lot, but I'm working towards a path of just finding a grad degree and seeing where I go off from there.
And for grad degree, where you want to do it?
That's another thing of consideration. As in, I haven't not considered staying in Tsinghua, but I'm also considering just going abroad to maybe pursue like a computer science degree or something like that. Well, like just in like a foreign university.
Okay. I think that, yeah, that those are the questions that I have right now. So, but I'm sure that I have tons actually. It's very interesting. It's very good to have you on the line here, so Junior, so to share your experience. So, I mean, clearly, so Tsinghua is really a top school in China. So we are very happy that you're having this education.
Me too. Well, next
Okay.
week we will have another topic, but we'll close this off right now, and we'll see everybody in a week or two.